What you are about to hear right now is not just some cheap locker room gossip. This is quite easily the biggest, most explosive political and sporting scandal we have seen in the last decade. World Cup champions, absolute icons who tear up stadiums every single weekend in England. Right now, they are on the verge of being completely kicked out, thrown onto the streets, shown zero mercy by the Premier League right during their World Cup parties. Crazy, right? It feels like the United Kingdom just declared war on football's absolute biggest superstars. But what if I told you that the actual story is far darker and goes much deeper than just some simple protest banner being held up on a football pitch? We are looking at an incredibly bitter conflict, a bleeding wound buried for decades between two nations that, to be totally honest, never really made peace. It is absolutely shocking, and the sheer urgency of this entire drama is completely unprecedented. If you think you already know the whole story just because you saw a couple of tweets, then hold on tight, because you have only heard half of it. There was this one night, a completely unforgettable night in Atlanta, that changed the entire landscape of football forever. It was the exact night that Argentina did not just knock England out of the 2026 World Cup, but they also ripped the scab clean off a 40-year-old wound, a bitter grudge that absolutely nobody expected to see bleeding out on the pitch once again. Just try to picture the scene. Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, when the massive Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta became the ultimate battlefield for one of the most intense, high-stakes football matches we have ever witnessed in our lives. Argentina versus England, a massive World Cup semi-final that completely paralyzed the entire planet. We had 70,000 screaming souls packed into the stands, and millions more with their hearts in their throats from Buenos Aires all the way to London. Passing through Mexico City and Madrid, the Albiceleste were coming off an absolutely flawless campaign, undefeated, crushing everyone in their path and proving exactly why they were the defending champions led by Lionel Messi. Meanwhile, England, on the other hand, carried the suffocating weight of an entire nation that had not won anything since 1966, but they had a golden generation, led by Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham, who swore that this time history would finally be rewritten. And man, did that match deliver. It was absolute warfare out there. Then came the 55th minute. Anthony Gordon buries a beautiful clinical strike after a pinpoint cross from Morgan Rogers, putting the Three Lions ahead. Suddenly, the entire stadium fell completely silent. Thousands of passionate Argentine fans who had traveled thousands of miles were left absolutely frozen in shock. Time was rapidly ticking away. 74th minute. Alexis Mac Allister rattles the post. Goalkeeper Jordan Pickford looked like an unbeatable wall, pulling off impossible saves. Just about everyone watching believed their fate was sealed and that the dream of back-to-back world titles was fading away. But pay close attention here, because this is the exact moment where this game takes an absolutely wild turn. The 85th minute hits. Enzo Fernandez, the very same player who, in just a matter of moments, would find himself at the center of the most intense international storm you could ever imagine. He picks up the ball outside the box and unleashes an absolute rocket. A clinical strike with surgical precision that left Jordan Pickford rooted to the spot like a statue. The stadium erupts, and then, as if the entire script had been written by some higher power, in the second minute of stoppage time, Lionel Messi works his absolute magic, delivering a beautiful assist for Lautaro Martinez to power home a brutal header, sealing the dramatic 2-1 victory. Argentina are going to the final, and England are heading home. But the madness was only just getting started. What happened after the final whistle blew is what currently has two nations, multiple football associations, and the entirety of the Premier League standing right on the edge of a complete and total collapse. The Argentine players were celebrating with their entire hearts, and the roar inside the stadium was completely deafening. Then, out of absolutely nowhere, a massive banner was thrown down from the stands onto the pitch, an enormous white sheet displaying just four simple words. Four simple yet highly dangerous words: the Malvinas Islands are Argentine. Within a matter of seconds, photos of the incident went completely viral across the globe. The video that literally everyone has now seen clearly showed Giovanni Lo Celso as one of the very first players to help unfurl that banner. Lisandro Martinez, The butcher of Manchester United was holding it up defiantly with both hands. Right next to him, Tottenham icon Christian El Cuti Romero was showing it off with undeniable pride alongside Nicola Sendi, and even Chelsea star Enzo Fernandez joined the group in the middle of all that sheer ecstasy. Every single one of them, players who earn millions on British soil, holding up the most painful message possible to English pride. Nobody really knows where that banner actually came from. Some people claim the players put it together right inside their team hotel, while others insist the fans meticulously planned the whole thing for days before smuggling it directly to the squad. But that is completely irrelevant. What matters is that it made it onto the pitch, and global broadcast cameras captured it from every possible angle. There was absolutely no way to hide it from the world. But hold on, because that banner is just the absolute tip of the iceberg. To understand why this is a ticking time bomb, you have to realize that Argentina had just knocked England out nearly 40 years after the bloody and brutal Falklands War, a conflict that claimed 649 Argentine lives and 255 British lives. Broken families on both sides of the vast Atlantic Ocean who to this very day still mourn their lost loved ones. Beautiful football and raw, ugly politics collided head-on at 200 kilometers per hour. What really should have been a massive night of celebration quickly transformed into a high-security diplomatic incident. And this is exactly where things start to get incredibly muddy. The British political machine was absolutely furious. What originally started as angry rants from bitter football fans on social media quickly escalated into something far worse, which political experts are now calling the heaviest pressure ever directed toward foreign players' bispertas inside the United Kingdom. These guys, Enzo, Lissandro, Bibu, Cutie Alexis, they are the very same stars who pack out Stamford Bridge, Old Trafford, and Anfield every single weekend. Yet today, for half of England, they are seen as a massive threat that needs to be completely eradicated. And right out of the shadows steps a man who means absolutely nothing to you or me, but someone who carries an incredibly massive amount of influence inside the United Kingdom. Niall Gardiner, this guy is the director of the Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom, and he was an advisor to the Iron Lady herself. Just a few short hours after the match ended, Gardiner fired off a message on his social media that was like throwing pure gasoline onto a burning fire. He demanded that any Argentine Premier League player who took part in this anti-British stunt should immediately lose their UK work visa. Absolutely zero tolerance. Get them kicked straight out of the country. British media outlets led by De Telegraphicon started echoing his extreme demands within mere minutes. Over in Argentina, people's blood was absolutely boiling. Social media quickly became a toxic battleground for local politicians, ex-players, journalists, and furious fans who literally wanted to tear each other's heads off. But here is the million-dollar question, the exact one that nobody in the mainstream media is actually answering directly. Does England genuinely possess the legal power to deport these famous world champions? Or is there something far more sinister pulling the strings behind closed doors? Here is the unfiltered truth. Niall Gardiner is simply a political analyst, just a political commentator. He is certainly not the Prime Minister, and he has absolutely zero power to cancel a visa. That specific authority belongs entirely to the British Home Office, the official Department of the Interior. We looked into the official statements from top immigration specialist Ozma Bashir, and the situation is incredibly clear. To get your visa stripped away in the UK, you must actually pose a direct threat to national security, be connected to terrorism, or commit a major crime. Holding up a banner about a border dispute, no matter how painful, is simply not a deportable offense. But, and here is the massive detail that completely changes everything, the real threat does not come from the government, it comes from their own clubs. If massive corporate giants like Manchester United, Chelsea, or Tottenham feel like the intense social pressure is becoming completely unbearable, or that major sponsors are walking away because the club's image is getting badly tarnished, they can easily terminate the contracts of these players by invoking standard code of conduct clauses. It is a cold, hard corporate business move, and if they get fired, they lose the club's sponsorship. Without that crucial sponsorship, their work visa simply vanishes into thin air. Just like that, it is that cruel. They would have to pack their bags and get off the island immediately. Think the drama ends there? Not even close, because I promised you this was going to get worse. And now steps in the ultimate final boss, FIFA. On July 29th, 2026, the FIFA Disciplinary Committee officially confirmed they are launching a formal investigation against the Argentine Football Association for violating Article 4 of the regulations, with this highly controversial politicals display. The specific names on this dangerous blacklist are Giovanni Lo Celso, Lisandro Martinez, and Christian Romero. But brace yourselves, because FIFA is not just investigating that banner, they are also tearing apart another brutal event that the mainstream press tried to cover up. We are heading straight to the massive final of the World Cup 2026 at MetLife Stadium in Nueva Jersey. Argentina versus Spain. Spain wins 1-0 in extra time, and the moment the final whistle blows, a massive brawl erupts. A brutal street fight of epic proportions tearing straight through both of the playing squads. The footage is absolutely savage. Leandro Paredes, the hot-headed Argentine midfielder, is facing not just one, but 3 separate charges of physical assault. Nahuel Molina is under active investigation for 2 violent altercations, and young Thiago Almada is also firmly targeted in the probe. Even the assistant coach of the Argentine squad, the legendary Roberto Ayala, stands accused of physically attacking rival players. There are photos, videos, and concrete proof showing Molina violently shoving Rodri, and Paredes grabbing Spanish defender Eric García by the throat right in the middle of the chaos. This has long bypassed political protest. It is about a total, terrifying loss of control on the world's biggest stage. Now, the Argentine Football Association has a massive multi-front crisis on its hands. It goes beyond the players. FIFA is actively investigating deeply offensive, discriminatory chants, repeated delays to kickoff times, severe security lapses, and a pattern of highly inappropriate conduct from the official Argentine delegates across the entire tournament. They call it a chronic pattern of behavior, but this is exactly where we must look closer and not get fooled. In 2013, Argentina's players showed an identical banner about the Malvinas and their punishment? A laughingstock fine of 30,000 Swiss francs, absolute pocket change for the AFA after Qatar. During 2022, FIFA opened strict disciplinary cases over their absolutely wild celebrations after beating France. But the outcome was never harsh enough to stop them from doing it again in 2026. So what kind of message is FIFA actually sending to the world? Does justice in football simply depend on how many millions you bring in from TV rights? If this had been done by a national team without global superstars, without sponsors paying millions, do you honestly think FIFA would be this lenient? Or would they be banned for life? Rules are never the same for massive commercial giants. That is the dirty secret here. In fact, the president of FIFA himself, Gianni Infantino, broke his silence with statements that were a masterclass in pure manipulation. Instead of directly condemning that banner, Infantino praised Argentina's incredible run and Lionel Messi, choosing careful words that everyone read as a quiet nod of approval, a wink to the Albiceleste. That calculated ambiguity reveals far more about FIFA's shadow operations than any official statement. Meanwhile, in Europe, conservative British media outlets are using Niall Gardner's words as a battle cry, demanding heads on spikes. Over in Argentina, television networks constantly broadcast reminders of the devastating, bloody cost of that war, turning players into heroes who spoke for millions. And right in the middle of this massive, head-on narrative collision, caught in this narrative war are the players, athletes who just wanted to celebrate, suddenly swallowed by a geopolitical storm far bigger than they could handle. When the dust settles, but the single image that will remain permanently burned into world sports history is this one. Giovanni Lo Celso standing on the pitch of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, holding that massive banner, flanked by his ultra-wealthy teammates, staring blankly into the distance as 40 long years of unresolved trauma and history hung heavily in the silent air, right in front of the devastated English fans who were leaving the stands. As the football world debates if these heroes should be kicked out, test of the richest league on earth, they must swallow a bitter truth. Shared blood and painful history cannot be solved by a generic FIFA disciplinary rulebook. No financial penalty has the power to heal a raw wound throbbing for 40 years. Argentina won in Atlanta, then lost a tense final to Spain, But today they face their darkest, most brutal match yet, played in closed-door offices without a referee, without a clock, where defeat could shatter the European careers of their biggest stars. I promise you we are going to track every single detail of this unfolding drama, because this is only the beginning, and the football associations are still cutting deals behind closed doors. But before you turn away, I need you to answer me one question, and I want you to be brutally honest down there in the comments section. Do you think the Premier League clubs will finally buckle under pressure and sack these players, or is FIFA just going to sweep it all under the rug with another tiny fine? Drop your thoughts down below. I will be reading absolutely every single response. And look, if this raw, unfiltered analysis and having the real truth laid out on the table gripped you today, go ahead and smash that like button right now. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on all your notifications, because FIFA's next move is going to shake the football world to its core, and you absolutely need to be the very first to hear about it. Share this with your fellow football fans so they can finally understand the massive scale of this madness. This has officially become bigger than football. See you in the next one.